Welcome to Mrs. Kasonya's tutoring. Today we're going to determine the equation of a line through the points 8, -1, and -2, 4. Now, whenever we see the question, determine the equation of a line, I want you to notice that they're asking us to find the equation of a line. Well, how in the world do we do that? First thing you should always do is write the general equation of a line. That is your first step. Y equals mx plus b. Your second step is to fill in these colors that we're missing. So the first color that we're missing is step number 2, our slope. Our slope is found by taking the second y value, subtracting the first y value to find a numerator, and then taking the second x value and subtracting the first x value to get our denominator. Now, where are these x's and y's coming from? I'm so glad you asked. They are coming from these 2 points given to us in our question. So this is our xy point, or our ordered pair called x comma y. So this is our first x, comma, there's our first y. Here's our second x, comma, there's our second y at 4. So we've got our values, so we can find our slope here. The second y would be our 4. This says to subtract our first y, which is a -1. Then we move on to our denominator. Our second x is -2, and this says to subtract the first x, and our first x is +8. Now we're just going to simplify this slope, find out exactly what that number is. We've got 4 minus a -1. Anytime we have signs stacked, they cross each other. A negative times a negative gives us a positive. So let's go ahead and find out what that is. 4 plus 1 is a 5 in the numerator. -2 minus 8, we add those numbers and keep the sign. We have a -10. Oh, that's an improper fraction. It reduces by a factor of 5 over 5. So our slope is 5 divided by 5, which is 1, and -10 divided by 5, which is a -2. Our slope is 1/2. We have this number. Yay! That was our first step to find that slope. Now that we've got that slope, we are going to plug it into this equation. But how are we going to do that? Well, now we need to find the rest of this equation. We're going to find the rest of this equation by using our point slope form. Well, what is the point slope form? I'm so glad you asked. We're going to fill in our point slope form of y minus y1 equals our slope, which we already know, multiplied by x minus x1. Well, what are these numbers? Well, we have our y. We're just going to keep whatever it is already. And we are going to subtract from it our y1 here. Well, our y1 we learned earlier was a -1 when we labeled our numbers. So we've got y minus a -1. We're going to bring down our equal sign. And then we have our slope of -1/2 from earlier. We found it. We're going to multiply that by our x, bring down the minus, and our x1 here is an 8. So we've just plugged everything in. So we're going to bring everything down. We've got y minus a -1. And if you'll remember, when we have a negative stacked on top of a negative, they cross each other and become a positive. So this is actually y plus 1, right? So I've got y plus 1 equals, distribution, -1/2 times x, -1/2 x, -1/2 times a -8. Whoa, what is that? -1/2 times a -8. There it is. Let's see what that comes out to be. We've got y plus 1 is equal -1/2 x. This 2 divides into itself once, and it divides into this -8 4 times. So we've got a -1 times a -4. -1 times a -4 gives us a +4 all over this 1 times that 1 gives us a 1. So I've got y plus 1 is equal -1/2 x plus 4. This is almost at this form y equals mx plus b. That's our goal, to get this equation of the line through these points in the slope-intercept form. So we're going to convert this point-slope form to our slope-intercept form of the equation. How do we do that? The y is isolated over here on the left-hand side. It's almost isolated over here on this left-hand side. Well, there's a +1 keeping this y from being isolated. How do we isolate this y if a 1 has been added to it? We undo the addition of 1. Well, what's the opposite of adding a 1? Correct. We subtract 1. So we'll have to subtract 1 here. And if we subtract 1 on the left side of the equation, we must also subtract 1 on the right side of the equation. So let's go ahead and see what happens when we do that subtraction there. We've got y plus 1 minus 1. These plus 1s and minus 1s add to 0, and we're only left with a y. Go figure, we've got a y on the left-hand side now. Now, bringing down our -1/2 x, because there's nothing to add to an x term, but here we do have some adding to do. We've got a +4 take away 1, which would give us a +3. So the equation of the line through the points 8, -1 and -2, 4 is y equals -1/2 x plus 3, and we are done. And well done. See you next time on Miss Kasonya's Tutoring. Have a great day. Bye.